Welcome. We are the Social Sippers. We have Brandon Rexin here today from Rexin Consulting. Media mogul, marketing mogul, one man show.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
Doing it all.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
So you started this in 2020.
Yeah. I was basically laid off.
Wait. We need to cheers.
Oh my gosh.
So our beverage of choice today on these Social Sippers is a seasonal, and it is an Irish coffee.
Okay.
Cheers.
Okay, so cheers.
Good choice, Brandon.
Thanks for coming on. Okay,
Yeah.
that's pretty good.
That is delightful.
Oh, good job,
Yeah,
Steph.
that's a good one.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. I figure it's everyone's favorite. Everyone's favorite.
Yeah, I don't think you can go wrong with that.
Right. Exactly.
I heard someone say they don't like coffee the other day, and I was like, they don't like coffee smell, they don't like coffee taste, nothing.
I used
you,
to be
you
like
are not that person, right?
I am very plain typically with my coffee. Like
Same.
iced black coffee.
But is this okay?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay,
It's great.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, whereas like, when my wife orders hers, it's like
Sugar?
gotta get the scroll out, and it's it's like I have it in my
And the cup is full.
Yeah, that's right. Like I get my notes section in my phone when we go through the drive-through because I'm like, hey, just that.
Half pump of
Yeah. Right.
Double pump, triple pump.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
funny.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm just very plain coffee also, unless it has some extra stuff in it.
Yeah, usually when she and I will meet for coffee, we'll do something a little bit more zhuzhed up. But
Yeah.
generally, we're both black coffee drinkers.
Yeah,
so.
iced black coffee. If I'm feeling froggy, too Splenda.
Oh, so usually you don't put any Splenda in it.
Everyone, I mean, it's 50-50.
Oh,
like it just
okay.
kind of depends. Like if I'm like on the go or whatever, it's like just get me in and out of here. I don't need time.
I'm just
I don't
gonna
need the
chug
extra
this
stuff.
anyway.
Yeah, whatever. So
Oh, funny. Okay, sorry. Oh, I just had to.
So you started in 2020.
yeah, so so I
great
worked
year.
in professional baseball for 10 years, and that's what brought me to the area. And when we got laid off from COVID, it was just one of those like, I didn't really like not being in control of my livelihood, and I figured if there was ever a time to take a gamble on yourself, it was when nobody knew what the heck was going on in the world.
Right.
And so coming on 5 years later, like still going strong, still love it, still, love the people I'm working with, and it's been great.
That's great. So can I ask what you were doing in professional baseball?
Yeah, so I moved all over. I mean, I graduated college in 2012 and immediately moved to Atlanta. So basically with all of the roles was primarily marketing, corporate partnerships,
Okay.
A little bit of sales, just because when you work in sports, there's always going to be some element of sales.
Right.
So I kind of like did that. I mean, I was in a different state almost every year for many, many years.
Okay.
And then when I moved here in 2018, this is where I've been the longest. So yeah.
And that's okay or not?
I love it here. I mean, I do. I enjoy it. I mean, it's,
I know. When we were talking beforehand, I was like, oh, the Dayton, Ohio, huh? That's where it's at.
yeah. I mean, like for me, it was nice coming here because I knew a handful of people. So when I got here, there was already like kind of that warm welcoming where you weren't going in completely blind. And I can go up and see my family. I mean, it's a couple hours up 75. I mean, it's an easy drive to get up there.
So with the way that you've structured your business, were you seeing in your former career like a gap in coverage between like marketing and then like a space that you could provide?
Yeah, I mean,
services. Yeah, I guess it's.
I think the big thing that I saw was I have a lot of friends that are business owners, and a lot of them were kind of all happening at the same time where they knew that I had a marketing background, and they were like, "Hey, we're paying this company thousands of dollars a month, but we don't feel like we're getting that value, but we don't know how to check them. We don't know the questions to ask. We don't know, how to interpret this data because, I mean, data can be spun to make people look better than they are. And so like there was just kind of this sense of like, I felt like, especially with like small to medium sized businesses where these are these people's livelihood. I mean, they're putting, they're cashing out 401ks to try and start these businesses and putting a lot of life savings into making it happen. And, to be on the end of not knowing if you're paying this company thousands of dollars or whatever it is, I mean, whether or not they're doing what they say they're doing, like,
Right.
I was kind of like, okay, well, I wanted to approach it a little differently, with a level of transparency. I mean, with anyone that I work with, like there's a level of education up front where if we're looking at analytics or we're looking at advertising performance, like I want to make sure that they're not relying on me to interpret the data. even if it's.
So you are heavily involving them in what this looks like, what their starting point is, and then how it's growing and what that means for them.
So is that like a monthly consultation that you'll do?
It's kind of just like when we start, it's a matter of like, okay, here's where we're at. Like I'll just do like an audit, I guess is probably the best way of like, here's where we're at. What are we trying to do?
Right.
Like, are we trying to get more sales? Are we
goals,
trying to get more people in the door? Are we trying to do this or whatever that looks like? And just make sure that like each step of each step along the way that they are in the know about it, that they can interpret. Now they still can rely on me. I'm still, there to play, but I don't like there being that barrier of knowledge to where if they don't know, they don't know. And that's how people get taken advantage of.
Right. They're just paying and not really understanding.
Yeah. And that happens so many times.
Like, I can see how that could easily happen.
Right. Because most of the time they would hire someone that's not in the area, right? You specifically work with people that are in the area.
Primarily, I mean, I've got some people outside of the area, but most of them are local. The number of times I had people that, I either worked with or currently work with, they're like, we're paying an agency out of Colorado Springs $2,000 or $3,000 a month. But they've never stepped foot in our business.
So they don't, and you need to truly know what the business is in order to market it.
Exactly. Especially with some of like the niche businesses. Like if you're very much a unique business in and of itself, like.
What's the most unique business you've worked with? We took a peek at your website. I'm just curious as to which one, like if that's one of the most, anything you listed on there was one of the most unique ones that you've dealt with.
I had an opportunity to work with Sherry Hoskins down in Hamilton. So she runs Petals and Wicks, and it's like a pour your own candle studio. And she was another one that I think really benefited from COVID. I mean, it was more experiential. It was people getting out of the house and really trying to grow it. And so like with her, it's like if you don't know, if you've not been in her shop, if you if you haven't stepped foot in there and really gotten an idea of what the vibe is like it's really hard to kind of market that. It's really hard to tell people about that. Like it's not like you're walking into like a Yankee Candle store where everyone's the same, right?
You just smell them, right?
And so like that's been really interesting. Working with her and she's now got a second location.
And does she feel like that's attributed to the growth that she found through like marketing and social media?
Yeah, I mean, I think now I'm just kind of more in like she leans on me for, questions and like, hey, this is what we're doing. But like early on, it was another agency out of state that she was paying. And she's like, I don't feel like we're getting it, but I don't know how to check it.
So basically walk us through how all of this works. So someone calls you and like, hey, I really need some marketing help, or I need some help with my website, or what do people specifically ask for when they're contacting you?
It's all over.
Oh, it's all over?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like with the digital marketing world right now, like everything kind of is intertwined. It's like your social media is connected to your website, is connected to your
point everything to the same.
Yeah, it's all like, if you're advertising, your advertising need to be in sync with the content you're putting on your social, and then that needs to be reflective of what's on your website, and things like that. So like to have the ability to kind of connect it all and be kind of a one-stop resource for these people with all of it, it works out well. So really the way it starts is like, they'll reach out like, hey, I need a new website. Okay, great. We sit down and like typically we'll go to lunch, because I'm not going to work with somebody that I'm not going to sit down and have a drink with or have
I really
dinner
liked
with.
that you said that. So some of the people that we've had on, everyone that's kind of the consensus with smaller businesses. I'm not working with someone that I don't jive with, essentially.
I mean, early on, it was like I had a fear mindset, I think, when you get, started on your own of like, I'm just going to take everything that comes my way because if I don't, I'm not going to be able to pay the bills.
Right.
And I did that for a while, and I think as I'm going through that, I get a better idea of like, okay, this is not the kind of person that I want to work with for whatever reason. I mean, and in some instances, it's not that they're a bad person or a bad business. It's just like we don't connect. Like I'm not the guy for it. And so like we'll sit down and we'll talk, and I'm trying to figure out what it is, what's the end goal, and a lot of times I would say like their end goal is going to be accomplished by something different than what they think they need. It's like we've had somebody that's told us we need a new website, and they quoted us at, an exorbitant amount of money. And when in reality, it's like, okay, I don't know how we get to that number, but I don't think we need to spend that much, right? Like, and so I think I'm unique in that regard because I'm not a big agency, I'm not a big firm. Like I don't have all this overhead. And I think for most people, like there's ways to do things with the being cost conscious, but not sacrificing quality. and that's kind of the route I've taken. And with the people I've worked with, it's been, we establish a level of trust. And I mean, like, I've been invited to people's weddings. I've been invited to like retirement parties and birthday parties.
Yeah.
Like, and it's fun. And it's like, the people I work with are now friends. I mean, and that's, and so, but that friendship has been rooted in trust and honesty and transparency.
Right.
And I think that's like, I think today people want to work with people. They don't want to work with brands. They don't want to work with companies.
Yeah.
Like, they want to work with real people. And so like someone that like they can text at 10 o'clock at night, because that's the only time of the day that they're able to sit down in front of a computer, because the rest of the day, like, they're running around trying to manage a business or manage people or whatever. And that they know that if they're reaching out to me, they're getting me. They're not getting someone else.
Right.
It's me.
Or an AI response.
Right.
Or,
Yeah. You know, and so I think like treating people like people and understanding the investment that they're putting in their business and trying to help them accomplish whatever it is, like, they appreciate that.
Right. Right.
Do you find that maybe one of the, 'cause I feel like what I'm hearing you say is one of the biggest pieces that you're bringing for different businesses, whatever type of business it is cohesion between their pieces of marketing?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think with, there's a lot of stuff that is either misconceptions or, I mean, you look at social media. I mean, it changes daily, right? I mean, there's new features, there's new this, there's new that, there's a new app, there's, different things. So like, unless you're constantly up to date on that stuff, it's very easy to, what used to work. I mean, look at video, right? I mean, like 3-4 years ago, it was like, okay, like 5 to 10 minute video was great. Now it's like 15 seconds. It's like, so if you don't know that, then you're going to continue to put out 5 to 10 minute videos thinking in your mind you're doing what you need to, because back in 2021, that was what worked.
Right.
And so just educating them on that. And then like, again, trying to, if they want to, like, I will teach someone how to do what I do, so that in 6 months, if they want to, and they have the desire to make their own social content or to update their own website, they can do that. I'm not the gatekeeper.
Right.
And at the end of the day, like, there's a level of trust there that comes with that. Like,
right.
I had one person like, so you're going to teach me how to not pay you. It's like, well, yeah. I mean, if you're in a position where you don't have that extra dollars for whatever reason.
Right now, right.
You're not going to be left out in the cold, and that when you do, or if you have questions, you trust me enough to come back to me,
right.
And we have a good relationship because of that.
Right. So most people are asking you for social media.
I mean, I would say it's pretty equal, like between website, either design, building, updating, social media content, and like advertising campaigns.
Okay.
Like, digital, Facebook, Google, YouTube type campaigns. So there's kind of like those are the 3 big ones.
Sure. So but every business is different, or you kind of follow one little platform and then kind of?
No, everyone's different.
Okay.
I mean, which for me is great. Like, I love the variety. I love, because some people they value things differently than others. Some people, when it comes to their social media following, like, they feel like their biggest value is in their followers. And that may be the case, right? So if that's the case, then we need to do a certain type of an advertising campaign to try and generate more followers. Whereas other people are like, I don't care how many people follow us. I'm trying to sell products.
Right.
In that regard, okay, then that's a whole different approach to it. And I think too, with websites, like, I think that there's been a big shift when it comes to the way business websites are structured, in the sense that, 5-10 years ago, when a business was building a website, they tried to make it look bigger than what the business really was. There was a lot of fluff, right? It's just to make it look a certain way.
Right.
Whereas, now it's like, how do I get in and get out as quick as possible? Like, to where if I'm on a website, I should be able to get what I'm trying to do in 3 clicks. Like, that's kind of my rule.
Yes.
Like, I'm on the website. If I'm trying to buy something, homepage, categories, click, checkout, I'm done.
Right. Apple Pay. If you got to type anything
Bingo.
in, most people are done.
Yeah.
So like, you have people that have had websites that were built 5, 10, 15 years ago that really had never restructured it. And now let's strip a lot of this back. I mean, what is this? And, like, pages that haven't been updated. And, well, we were just trying to make it, trying to fill it out. I'm like, I get it. I mean, I understand that. And that's how it was. But I think with the way that a lot of things are taken into account, whether it be how Google searches your site or different things play a factor in it, like having a much more simple, easy to use, intuitive website that looks good on a cell phone, it looks good on a laptop or an iPad. Like, those are the types of things that are really important, as opposed to, I mean, I may be, kind of an anomaly when it comes to it, but like blogs, like, people don't read blogs anymore, right?
It's mostly for search, though,
bingo,
right?
100%. Like, that's where, like, I tell people, That's one of the easiest things that you can do because it helps with your search engine optimization. It helps people find you. You can put certain keywords in it. I don't care if people read it. And like when I tell people that, they're like, "Well, what are we doing this for then?" And it's like when you get them to understand it. But again, it's another instance of if they don't know, they don't know. If they're thinking that they need to put out a weekly blog and that blog becomes a burden on them, it's like, well, we don't need to do that.
One more thing.
So are you helping with the creation of the blogs also?
Yeah. So there's so many tools out there to where I can see like what are trending keywords in their industry, in their category, geographically. And then we take that and say, okay, well, here's some topics that I feel are, that would be beneficial to write a blog about. Can we do this? And I mean, and some people, use AI to write a blog, right? Like, it's not.
Do you suggest chat?
I think for some people, yeah. I mean, I don't think it's an end all be all. I think at the end of the day, like if you do have people stumble upon your blog and read it, that it's coherent, right? It's not just rambling nonsense.
Because I do, and I think like we can kind of tell at this point, if it's been generated or if there's some authenticity behind it.
So typically, like what I'll tell people is like, if you're just using it as it's not going to replace, putting pen to paper. It's not going to replace, you representing your company, your brand, your whatever. But I think what it does is it allows you to, essentially have another source to, hey, we rephrase this to make it sound a certain way? Like I just wrote this. Can we make this sound more professional or more relaxed, more laid back? Right. Or even something like, can you generate 10 topics that I should consider writing a blog for my, in Sherry's business, a candle business. It's like, it's more like just information that you can consider. I mean, it's not, but I think for a lot of people, like it can help with a lot of things. I mean, it's not going to, it's not taking people's jobs and stuff.
Not taking your job, obviously.
Right. Well, it sounds like you focusing in on the authenticity and the personalization and you being a small business is part of what makes this work for you.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't have the desire to have a bunch of staff members. I don't have the desire because, I mean, for me, money's never really been a motivating factor. I mean, let's be honest. The cost of living in Southern Ohio is pretty manageable. So you don't need to make an absorbent amount of money to live comfortably around here. I mean, for me, it's being able to do the things that I want to do when I do. I mean, I coach baseball, and that's something that I spend a lot of time with. And had I still been working the job that I was 5 or 6 years ago, I wouldn't be able to do that. And so, like, now it's like I can go coach at 2:00 on a Tuesday and it not throw a wrench in my whole day and do that on a regular basis. And I think, too, like, with our area, I think that there's a lot of business growth that I think is happening. I think that, I mean, I lived in multiple states. I mean, new place every. I've never been in an area where there's so many entrepreneurs and business owners within one area.
That's interesting.
I agree with that.
A lot of creativity here.
And I think a lot of that is just from. I think there's a lot of factors that go into that, but by being real and approaching it from a different standpoint and not having that like, oh, I want to be this massive agency. Not to say that those agencies don't have a time and a place. I'm just not trying to be that person. It allows me to have that more personal touch with people. It allows me to, hey, here's my cell phone number. If you're up at 11 o'clock at night, because that's the only time you can work, I'm usually up that time,
What about 6 a.m.? You got 6 a.m.ers?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I now that we have a newborn, like my sleep schedule's been off.
Way off.
But I mean, I was one that like I'd go to bed at, 11 o'clock midnight and I'd be up at 4:30 or 5.
Oh, shoot.
I just like sleep was never, I was terrible at sleep, right? And, so I was always up all hours and I would tell people that like, and maybe that's not healthy. Maybe it's like not trying to set those barriers, but like, I just knew the way that I worked that like, if I'm a business owner and I'm stressing about something at 6 a.m., like I don't want to wait until somebody walks into their office at 9 a.m. to try and get that answer. Like, get a hold of me and like let's figure this out so that we can tackle this. You get a better peace of mind and you're not stressing for the next 2, 3, 4 hours while you're waiting for somebody to.
At least they know someone's working on it. It's interesting that you say that about sleep. So did you watch the Martha Stewart documentary?
I haven't seen it. No.
Okay, that's one of the things that she says, that she doesn't prioritize sleep and she never has, and she just kind of works when she wants to, whenever that is, because she enjoys her work so much. That she just feels like it's healthier for her to just let it kind of bleed all over the place, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have I don't have a lot of structure as far as like when I work and when I don't work. I think it's just a matter of like what that day is bringing me. Like, in the springtime when I'm coaching a lot of high school baseball, like, yeah, my days are going to be basically 6 a.m. to 1 p.m. and then from 9 p.m. to midnight because in the middle of the day. Whereas in the fall, it's like, okay, I can, have a 9 to 5 if I want to. But I think at the same time, like, I love what I do. I mean, I love that type of stuff. I love, shooting videos and creating social content or building websites. And like, it happens all the time where I just get lost. And like, I'm building a website right now for someone. And it was like last night I was up for 3.5, 4 hours and it's, wait a minute, where'd the time go? But it's fun, like I don't feel stressed.
So are you lost in the creativity portion of it, or like are you more of like the coding kind of?
I think probably the creativity part of it, but I think for most people is like the website process has become very complicated, and it can be hard for people to really understand what they want. And so for me, it's the creative side is a part of it, but it's more so like trying to figure out the solution to it, to where, a lot of times if you go to someone and say, hey, what kind of a website do you want? Like, I don't know. I don't know.
Oh, a website.
Right.
One of them. That would be my answer.
Right.
By the way.
One that works. I don't know. Like, so it allows for like, I get enjoyment out of trying to figure out ways to make their process easier, because I think if you build a website the right way, it can take a lot of the stress and pressure off of like the monotonous work, right? Whether it be through different automations or stuff like that. Like those are the things that like I get down the rabbit hole of like, okay, well, if somebody comes to the website, how do we make it so that this happens and then this happens? And it's like, I've got like an 8-foot by 4-foot dry erase board in my office, and I'm just like,
following the trail,
right? Like, beautiful minding it of like, okay, if we go here to here, like, how do we end up here? And so that's the part that I enjoy.
Clearly, because you kind of lit up when you started talking about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fun. I think it's like when you have that ability to resolve issues, make people's process easier, and be able to get creative while you're doing it and make things look cool.
Right.
I think that's just kind of a neat process.
Well, and a lot of these small businesses, I mean, their main goal is to make money.
Right.
And so like marketing, yeah, it's important. Sales are important, but in the end, like they don't have time to go to all of these different, offices, so to speak. So you're definitely alleviating that, but they don't even know how to do that, or what they're trying to accomplish.
Right. And I think too, like with now, whether it be the evolution of AI or like these automation platforms that, there are things that can be done now that make people's jobs much more efficient, or there's ways to go about things in a different standpoint where, like I'm working with a business right now where we're building out a CRM, right? Well, they had gotten quoted from like, $15,000, $20,000, $30,000. And it's like, they're just not to that point where they need to do that. So it's like, how do we use, this platform and this platform and this platform, tie them all together and resolve their problem for a fraction.
Right.
And then it's structured in a way where they can build upon it later if they end up needing those features.
Yeah. I mean, it basically, like for them, it's, hey, let's build this process out. Let's try it for a year.
Yeah.
Like, we can adjust it along the way. Whereas like if you went with like a, kind of a cookie cutter type system out there, like a lot of those, like there's not a lot of customization for them because they're a unique business.
Right.
And it's like, they also don't know what they really want and what they don't want because they're still, I mean, they've been around a couple of years.
Sure.
And so it's like, by building it this way, we have the ability to just change things on a whim and try it and see what works. And then like, if we come up with the solution at the end of the day that is working for us, then if we want to try and make it sexier, we want to try and make it a cleaner version. Okay, then we can go to another, another platform and say, hey, this is what we're looking for. Like we've tested this out.
Yeah.
We know these are the features that we want. We know this is the types of things that need to have happen, and these are the things that we really don't.
Right.
And go from there.
When you're working with someone, do you give them like a timeline? Hey, you can see typically growth within this amount of time, or is it different from genre to genre?
I think it's different. I mean, first off, like I don't make people sign contracts. Like I think that's
interesting. Yeah.
With the exception of one time, like I've never been burned. But I think at the end of the day, like part of that starting point is I think a lot of times like contracts, multiple things can happen with them. Like it become contentious because if you don't want to work with me, I don't want to work with you. Like that's just a
Oh, yeah.
toxic environment
Yes.
that no need,
Yes.
it doesn't need to
Great
be
point.
there. That's a lose-lose for everyone. The other part of it is like if you're giving me a shot, like I'm not the person that has a big office down the street. Like, and if I say, okay, we need to commit to 6 months, 12 months, like, I mean, you guys know people have commitment issues. Like, it's like you go buy a gym membership and like, okay, you need to be here for 3 years. It's like, wait a minute. Like,
Right.
So I think it brings everyone's walls down. It's like, oh, we're not committing to anything. Like, so my contract is really a scope of work. Like, this is what I'm doing. This is what I need from you to get the ball rolling. This is kind of what this is going to look like on a monthly or a weekly or a bi-weekly basis. And then each month with people or bi-weekly with some, we go over everything. And it's like, I'm never going to promise any one thing that I know isn't feasible. Like, so that's where like by saying, okay, yeah, in 6 months, we're going to have 72% growth in your social media. Like, that's just not, I can't control that. Like we could put out incredible content, but like if people don't find it, they don't find it. And if we don't find the right people, we don't find the right people. But like, that's just kind of where that's just always a moving dial. It's a moving percentage. Like as long as we're trending in the right direction, like I think that's what people want. Like, and I have had people who are like, hey, we need to be at a certain place in 6 months. We need to, if I'm going to bring you on and pay you X number of dollars per month in 6 months, our revenue needs to be reflective of this. I'm like, I can't promise that.
Yeah, let's just see where we're at.
Like I can do everything I can to try and do that. But if that's a hard number you need to have, I'm not your guy.
Right.
Like I can help in that process and we can help develop things and to try and get there. But like, I'm not one that's going to say that's exactly where we're going to be.
I can lead you in that direction, but I can't guarantee that.
And I think that's another thing that like a lot of people have bad taste in their mouth from like agencies or firms is because like we were told that we were going to do this.
Right.
We were told that we were going to hit these numbers and we're not. And there's not like any make rights on it. Like people just make these promises and then they don't hit them in a certain time frame, and it's like, okay, let's just keep moving. Like,
and then a lot of times too, they'll turn it back on the client themselves. Like, well, we told you to do this and you didn't do this, so that's not our fault.
Right. And so like that like in that regard, it's just again having that level of honesty and transparency of like, we did this month. Here's what we're going to do going into this next month.
Right.
Here's what I need from you to help make this possible.
Right.
What do you need from me on my end that you're seeing? Because nobody knows your business better than you. How can I support the additional things to help us continue to move in the right direction?
Yeah,
because
I love that.
Things don't happen overnight.
So you are kind of offering something that's consistently flexible then.
Yeah,
in
that's
terms
what
of
people
like,
need.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Especially small business owners. I mean, they don't want to be confined to this box. I mean,
that's why they're small business
exactly.
owners.
Like
exactly.
You work 80 hours for yourself, so you don't have to work 40 for somebody else.
Right.
I've heard that many times.
It doesn't make sense, but yeah.
Right. So having that level of flexibility to where like, hey, can we, get coffee on this day, or can we do this? And like, there's a lot of people I work with, like, we don't have a set monthly meeting, and that's another thing that like, most people don't want to sit in another meeting. Like,
they're like, hey, can you stop by and we can talk for 10 minutes? You're like, sure, not a problem.
Like, awesome. People don't want another Zoom call. They don't want another meaningless, meeting to talk about what the next meeting is going to be about, right? Like, so yeah, I mean, having that level of flexibility, I think, is the biggest thing that is that people appreciate when we get an opportunity to work together.
Right.
So we're going to link all of your ways to find you on the bottom of the show notes, but can you share like what a fee structure would look like? I know it's probably a little bit different for everyone, but just kind of give a ballpark.
So I don't do anything hourly. Like everything is basically done in like a monthly or like on a project basis.
Okay.
And I found that because if people are looking at everything from an hourly standpoint, especially when it comes to like the larger project, if I'm building a website, they don't end up asking for everything that they want on a website because they don't want to pay for that extra time to do it.
Yeah.
No, and inevitably at that point, they're going to end up with a product that they're not super excited about. Whereas like if I say, hey, this website's relatively simple. It's going to cost X number of dollars. This is where we're going to be at. Here's the scope of work. Here's what we're looking at. And it's a flat cost, now if there's things that you want that are going to be outside of the scope of work, then we can revisit it. But at that point, they get excited about it because they're no longer confined by this fee structure.
They know what it's going to look like.
Like, great. If it's $1,500, it's $1,500. If it's $5,000, it's $5,000.
I know what to look
like I know what it is.
So what would be the average cost to build a website?
That's
from scratch.
Yeah, I mean that's a hard question. For me, I tend to say like for most people, like you can get something that's going to do what you need for $1,500. Like now I'm probably undercutting a lot of people out there by saying that, but with the platforms that are available to people, now more than ever, things like WordPress for most businesses, I think is too complicated. I think it's great because it's a blank slate. It allows you full creativity to do whatever you want with your website. But with something with WordPress, there's all these plugins that constantly need to be updated, that licenses constantly need to be active. And if you're having someone else build your website, well, those licenses are probably purchased by that person. And when those licenses run out, all of a sudden, that plugin is no longer working on your website, and your website comes crashing down.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So things like Squarespace or Wix or things like that I think over the years have kind of had this negative connotation as being like, amateur, Mickey Mouse-ish, whatever you want to call it. Like, they now have the ability to provide a lot of these resources to make things look good, to integrate with like Google Analytics and Google Ads and your social medias and all of these like seamless integrations that just make the process for most businesses easy. Because at the end of the day, like what I've found and the people that I work with is they need a digital presence. They need something that's easy to maintain, that is that they can swap out, whether it's products or images or if there's
promotions, if they do
right,
monthly
like
promotions.
Client reviews, something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So like if you don't have really the knowledge of WordPress, like that's not something that you can just kind of do. And like with WordPress, there's so many things to it. It's a great platform. Like I think for some larger businesses and for more complicated sites, it's awesome. But for the locally owned like boutique store, they don't need that.
They don't have time for that.
They need something like Squarespace where they can set up a Facebook shop and sell their stuff on and have that integrated into their website and have that integrated into their Google Analytics and ads where like it's easy. So
what's your favorite, like, do you have a favorite service that you offer that you're like, yes, I can't wait to do this with these folks because I love, like, that's kind of my angle that I really...
I think the websites.
The websites?
Because, a website that's their digital... Like, that's a reflection of them from a digital standpoint. Like, that's their
people
digital home
always
base.
are looking you up.
Right, So, like, with a lot of people that I come across is, like, if they have a website, they're not proud of it. They don't want to send people there. Like, it's there. We've got it. We don't, like, do anything with it.
Right.
Whereas, like, when you turn the website over to someone that's done, like, you can truly see them get excited about it. And they're getting business cards made and they're making QR codes, like, make sure you visit us and we can do this and we can do that. Like, that, to me, like, that's like the digital version of moving into a new office building. Like, there's just a general level of excitement,
yeah, I like that.
When you have that to where you can provide that to them, they get excited. And it allows them to have that level of creativity, their involvement and their input that, maybe they may or may not have gotten elsewhere, And so I think when you can provide that, like the end result for me, that's always the most exciting part. Like, you do the final walk through the website and they're like, oh man, this is awesome.
You open the package and they're
right. But I think even more so, like for probably half the people, like when we, flip the website on, they also know that if they need to make changes, I'm not a gatekeeper.
Right.
They can do
it.
And I think there's a level of fulfillment that comes with that because like I now have something that I can manage, whereas like I think with some of the larger firms out there is you're basically at someone else's schedule.
You're like,
you're at their mercy.
Right. Like I need we've got 16 new products that we'd like to get up before next Wednesday. Can we get these up? We'll see if we can't fit you in. Like, you got to fill out a ticket and then you get put into this and then it becomes this whole process. And you're like, sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't. Whereas like, these people not only have invested less than I think that they had been quoted for elsewhere, but now they also have the knowledge and the know-how to make changes if they need to. And also know that they have peace of mind that if there's something else or something's not happening that they can call or email.
Right. So if they're like, I don't have time to do that, can you just do that for me? Okay.
Yep.
That's good. So what's a challenging... What's the most challenging aspect to what you do and how you, like, when people call you and like, are there any people that are like, hey, we want to do this, but we don't want to do this? Or
I think the hardest,
I like video, but I hate being on video.
Right. Yeah. That is definitely. I think in a world where video content is king. It's one where you can shoot it once, edit it 4 times, and use it 10 ways. Right. It's so versatable. Whereas like you do get those people that are they're camera shy, which I get. That's a normal thing, right? But it's a lot of times when it comes to video and when we put people in front of the camera, I I have a very different approach to it. Like I will not film someone if you come in with a script. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna film you if you come in with cue cards, because at that point you're not trying to convey a message. You're trying to remember what's on the cards.
Yeah.
And you become deer in headlights.
Right.
You know. So like, for a lot of times with people, like they want to prepare. Great. I want you to prepare. Like I want you to know the things that you want to touch on. But I want us to have a natural conversation. So when we're filming a lot of content with people, like I tell people, the cameras are always recording. You and I are just gonna talk. You know, and like with some people, it's like, okay, I want to do this. And so like, we'll do it the way that they feel comfortable and they're trying to remember everything. And then the cameras keep going and I'll just like kind of backtrack and just start asking questions.
Right.
You know?
And that's when you get
the
really
best stuff, because the personalities come out.
Yeah.
The natural flow of a conversation comes out. You know, they're not trying to remember those things again.
Right.
It's just we're trying to have a conversation. And I think that's what people want in video. Like they want it to be comfortable. They don't want this, you know, like the deer in headlights look where it's robotic and it's rehearsed and it's not real. I mean, people want real.
Right.
You know, and so I think like that's been one of the big things where once you get people to understand that, it's a lot easier, because I'm like, we're not having to do anything. You're having to do less. Like, because we're just, you know, we're hitting the record button and we're talking.
Right.
Like, I think some of the harder parts is I've had people come to me with a high dollar budget. And
you're like, yeah, you can give that to me.
Yeah, and it's like in theory it's great, but then like once you start breaking it down of like, you know, whether it be their perceived level of involvement in it. I mean, I've had people that are like, hey, this is what we need, but like we're not really going to be able to be involved in this. I can't. I'm not your guy for that. Like that dollar amount looks great, but what you're looking for isn't going to be feasible within the
because you want the interaction.
Yeah, like I want it to be back and forth. Like I want it to be, you know, we're approaching this together. Like you're playing a part in this involvement, or you're playing a part in the development of it. You're playing a part in it, and I'm kind of making it reality. Like I'm not going to be the one that's going to tell you.
That requires you to get to know them in a different way and their business.
Yeah.
So it's got to be there.
Yeah.
The involvement has to be there.
Yeah. I mean, when I get with someone new, it's like, okay, if you're starting a business, why'd you start it? I mean. Because if there's a certain reason, then we need to convey that. Like, we need that to come out in our marketing. Like, we need that to be reflective of your website. Like
people connect with people that they can connect with.
Like, and I think if you do things right, like if you build a website right and you shoot video right and you do content right, people will feel like they know you before they've even met you. And so that when they do finally connect with you, it's like you're just talking to a friend.
Right.
You know, you're just talking to a relative that you know in your entire life because they've seen you on your social, they've seen your video clips on your website. You know, they see the passion for what you're doing. They understand that the reason you started this business was because you got tired of working a 9-to-5. You wanted to do something with your son, and now 2 years later, this is what we're doing.
Right.
You know.
Right. Yep.
And so like that part of it, I think is, you know, is another fun part of it is getting people to tell their story, like talking about themselves, right? I mean, that's like we're
at the end of the day, everyone actually so really does, even when you're scared. I think that, but that's what we want to hear when we're consuming the content, also.
Right.
Like if I want
to be relatable.
Yeah, it has to be relatable. If I'm gonna go to, I think Val's Bakery does a really good job of like they posted this video. Are you familiar with Val's Bakery? Yep. Okay, they posted this video this morning, and it was like something about getting to the bakery, open the bakery with us or something like that. And I was like, oh, yay. I was so excited to see it. I'm like, I want to see what they do.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, so like when you can get people to tell their story, and then when they realize that like that reason behind this has got to be the driving factor in everything we do. Because if that's not the case, if we can't convey that, then we're not telling your story, and thus we're not telling, you know, people about your business in an accurate manner.
Right.
And I think it's sometimes hard for businesses to know what to say to explain that. So the conversation becomes extra important then, and them knowing you and you knowing them becomes even more important.
Right.
But I do think that what you're doing is filling a gap for a lot of people between like, oh, hey, okay, let's put all this together and then let's put this out here on social media. Or going to an agency, like you said, there's just like something in between.
Yeah, for sure. And I think too, like there's so many little like tips and tricks that you can provide to people that help make that process easier. You know, if you're scheduling social media content, having like topics, you know, like when we put together like a monthly calendar, you know, it's like, okay, we're going to post 3 times a week. because that's what's feasible for you. Like I don't want a social media post to become a burden. Like, so if it's 3 times a week, it's 3 times a week. If you want to do 2 times a day, great, we can do that, right? Like whatever's going to make the most sense. And then, okay, let's create topics so that like that way the content varies. You have structure to what we're putting together. You know that in 2 weeks on a Wednesday, we're going to post a client review.
Right.
And that following Friday, we're going to post a recipe, and like a behind the scenes, whatever. Like,
and that relieves people too, so they don't have to constantly be thinking like, oh, wake up in the morning, like, what am I going to post? Because, social media has become a burden.
Yeah. And then you can be scheming on it in the meantime because you have some kind of structure.
Your shower thoughts.
Yeah, and I think
exactly
100%. Like you have that, that general schedule, that general structure to it, but it also allows for the freedom to, hey, on a Tuesday we may not have something scheduled, but this is a really cool thing I thought about.
Yep.
So like it allows for that flexibility again to be able to do that. But they know that if it's a week where they don't have that, they know that they've got 3 well thought out posts that are going out that week.
Yeah.
So.
That's great. That's awesome.
Is there anything you want people to know for sure? Like, is there one thing that you would want to tell people if they're considering reaching out?
I think it's just like there's no harm in a conversation. Like, and there's been times where like I'll have conversations with people and I'm not the right fit, but I may know someone who is.
Yeah.
Like
that's a good point.
I have really tried to I get to know people. Like I think every job I've ever had, I've never been the most qualified, but I've been the one that's willing to have conversations, that I'm the most personable. Like I'm generally curious. And by aligning myself with people that are in a similar space, like if you're trying to do something that I can't do, I at least can tell you like, hey, I've got a guy. I've got people that are doing this. Like,
right.
You're looking for a much larger video production than I'm capable of doing. I've got people that can do that. You need a website that is significantly larger than what I would feel comfortable doing. I've got people that can do that. And so I think with that point, like have a conversation. Like, me, I don't charge for conversations. Like, let's go get coffee. Like, let's go get lunch. Like, at the end of the day,
dollar for your thoughts, right?
Like those types of things. Like, just be, if you're curious, like, let's talk. Like.
Hence the consulting portion.
Right. Like, let's chat. Let's see what's going on. Let's see what it is you're trying to do. And at the end of the day, like, if no job gets done, if no work starts, like, you now know who I am. I know who you are, and we just made acquaintances or friends or whatever that relationship ends up being.
Right. You seem like a great connector.
Yeah. I mean, I enjoy it. Like and I think part of that is me always having lived in a new place. Like,
true.
Oh yeah.
You kind of have to be that person where you're out meeting people and you're out talking to people and getting familiar. Like always being the new guy in town. Right. Like, and I think a lot of it does come from that.
That's a good point. Yeah.
All right. This is great. Wait, the time went really fast. It's like 11:20. We've talked for almost an hour.
Nice.
So we keep saying we're going to shorten these. And then it never happens. We always end up talking for almost an hour. But thank you for coming on.
Yeah,
this has been great.
Anything else that you want to add? That
I don't think so.
No.
I mean, I think we kind of touched on it all.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's cool what you guys are doing. I think this is, it's been fun. It's nice having something local where you can talk about the business, and I think it's a perfect spot for it because there are so many people, like at least in my circle, that are, going off on new ventures or starting new things or getting back into something after being removed from it for a while. Like I think it's such a perfect area for something like that.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's good.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely.